Now we're live. Okay. So yes, this is a room. Oh, I didn't open the chat thing, so I have to go get that. Yes, that's terribly important. Must have the chatters. They add so much value. I mean, they're just. Oh, I didn't open the chat. Yes, I have to do that. Okay. Thanks for
Even
reminding me, Gary. Yes, thanks for reminding me. I would never.
unlimited penis.
Let's see.
Fuji.
Yes, well, I could have done that, but I just said, "Oh, fuck it." You have to earn your credibility back, so we'll have to just see how that goes. You know, so, huh?
Come again?
You have to earn your credibility back. You see, so it's I couldn't have the great return of the great something or other because your ending performance the last time was kind of
Off.
well, just wasn't very productive.
Oh, so say you. But
Yes,
yeah,
well, that's
I,
sort of the
I
point,
kind of,
though. So
I
say
kind of agree.
we, so say a rational argument. A rational argument says so, not just me.
Well, okay. Which one?
Which one? What?
Which rational argument says that?
Well, I'm just saying that the composition of the rational argument is that what you did wasn't productive. It doesn't do anything for the cause of elevating people's understanding of this crisis we're in, where too much misery and suffering is being wasted in the current meme generated perception of reality.
That's a claim. That's not an argument.
Yes, of course, it's an argument. The premises, if you want to argue the premises, then fine, let's argue the premises. So you are actually a glib fuck, and you don't actually
In a way.
understand that we exist in a world that has completely wasting preposterous amounts of suffering. Are you arguing that premise?
No, I'm not.
Okay, then the second part of the argument is that the anything having conversations about how much foot fungus I have, or how many eyelashes I'm missing, um, would be totally useless to the function of generating awareness or passion in other people, or motivating them in some way to be more productive or aware or conscious of this problem we just conceded exists.
Um, that's kind of tricky because at what point can you actually pinpoint uh, a point where an argument becomes verifiably useless? I mean, or even a fact.
Well, aren't the laws of averages kind of an intelligent man's guide? I mean, in the sense that we can know that wishing on stars, in some bizarre way, maybe it's possible the universe does have some sort of mechanism where wishing on a star actually makes a difference, but there actually doesn't seem to be any evidence verifying that. It seems an incredible long shot that the physics would be hiding from us. So we can draw the law of averages kind of conclusion that that's a low probability event at best. And if we're really going to be rational, we can say, oh, fuck it, that's nonsense. Are you really arguing that we can't tell the difference between completely hope-filled delusions of reality and pragmatic, practical, this is what your real, this is the
Yeah.
real map you have to navigate, and there really aren't any rabbits that run as fast as light moves, and so you can't tie yourself to one to make yourself go faster or something. I mean, we know what's realistic here. This isn't Wonderland. We really don't have to expect talking cards and whatever vanishing caterpillars and whatnot.
Okay, there's quite a thing to unpack there. First off, you have to create a. I'll do it again. You have to create a spectrum between the sheer wishing of something and causing something to happen. Sometimes, if you ask somebody to do something, like, in us don't randomly take your shirt off, it, you know, it might move that someone to actually make it happen. So that's the one spectrum I want to take into account: this saying something, being understood, and being set into motion towards that something.
Well, regardless, I don't think you're really answering the point that there's a huge difference between all of the silly things you can imagine being possible and the things that are, as a practical matter, likely by overwhelming odds to make a difference. So there's
Okay.
make a difference, and there's things that have absolutely, realistically, no hope of making any difference.
What if? Hold on, I keep losing this. So the question was, is there? Anyway, how about you go the other way? How about you try and, let's say it in really blunt terms, and exploit that collection of connections which you might establish by, let's say, something like playing into the system as it now exists. The more intel you have about something, the more detailed you can go about actually accomplishing something, right? And for detail to be had, you have to collect it, and to keep that detail, you have to acknowledge it, like the sheer collection of it. And if you have so much detail, you can actually navigate between those small bridges that you build, rebuild, tear down.
This is an argument that came up in my physics video lately. Just this argument about how, because, I'm sort of making the argument that physics is completely obsessed with diagnosing the murder scene, in the sense that they're sitting there wasting time looking at the corpse and trying to find out where every cell is and how every bacteria is growing and how dead the dead person is and blah, blah, blah. And they have just no clue in terms of saying, why are they dead? The why question is lost because they're obsessed with nonsense that couldn't possibly make a difference to diagnosing the why is the person dead in the room. So I would argue that, yes, it's very nice to understand some of this consequential interactions that people have and maybe some of their psychology and some of this other mush. But the real point is the objective is still to diagnose the solution to the crime. That is, figuring out the way to get from the point A to the point B. The point B being awareness changed to some perspective where people are a little more humble about existence and recognizing the cost of it, versus where they are now, which is glib and insensitive and overtly disconnected from recognizing the real cost of their existence.
Disconnect is pretty much a diagnosis of that problem. You said something along the lines of the solution. That's the very problem. That's part of the problem. There's not the solution. You're tapping into, like a human mind, you're tapping into several possibilities. And the imprints and sensibilities dictate where your mind goes, just like you said in your previous video about words. And the sheer differentness of the minds is a problem in and on itself. So you have to bridge the way from one understanding to another understanding. And it seems to me that you don't want to, that you're like a train. You just want to drive over some diversions that are clearly there, even if you classify them as such. Okay, my opinion.
I think that's just bullshit. I think it's bullshit. Okay, look, I think it's just bullshit. Okay, I mean, I have nothing against somebody. Like I said, if you think there's some bizarre strategy. Like you'll just make weird little gestures and do, you'll act like a monkey. Maybe you even put on an actual gorilla suit and bounce around in the room, and that somehow will work. Fine. Where am I saying don't do it? Am I saying somewhere, stop? No, that's a waste. Don't do it. No, I'm saying go ahead and do that if you think that's going to fucking work. Fine. I'm just saying I have so much time and energy to devote to my portion of investment in, getting this job done. And from my perspective, that's just fucking a waste of time. So go ahead and do it. All right. But don't tell me I have to think your big plan that, monkey gestures are the way to go. Why should I be convinced? I mean, what evidence have you provided to prove to me somehow that, yeah, well, the more I act like the amazing atheist, the more I'm going to really educate people? Or am I just going to, give them bananas? I mean, I'm not going to get them anywhere. I'm just going to feed them moron fruit. That's already been in my ass, by the way.
That, well, profiling works. Do you agree?
I agree. It works in certain circumstances. Yes, of course, it works but it's completely dependent on the circumstance, whether your profiling is for anything that really matters.
Why does the it mattering part correlate to the it working part?
Well, working means that you can profile people, like you could notice a difference, and you could say that's the difference that's connected to some other difference. Well, you can be completely wrong about that connection. That is, you could say, I can judge your IQ by how short your hair is, or some kind of bullshit, right? So I could profile you by how long your hair is and say, I know what your IQ is by some probabilistic equation. Well, I'm saying statistically that could be wrong, because the real issue is that short hair means they smoke more cigarettes, which means they're smarter because, or you know what I'm saying. I can come up with, there can be some other reason that's the real cause, and the hair is just an incidental cause, and the correlation is so slight that your profiling doesn't gain you any advantage because there's only a 3% rather than a 70% correlation, blah, 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 blah.
And let's say we start with that claim. Like this pretty stupid claim, let's say, the hair length and the IQ correlation. Let's start with that, okay? I'll even agree to it as a starting point. Within 7 or 8 questions, it will refine itself to a really, really, really a way better razor. Right?
Right, but we know profiling isn't doing that. Profiling is doing the simplistic, do it quick and dirty. Profiling, by definition, okay, isn't doing highbrow analysis.
I agree. That's why it's, it creates these discrepancies. So, but that's if you keep reusing the same amount of factors in the profiling, if you keep overlaying factors, which might be random even, if they keep getting more accurate, there's something to it.
Well, I'm just saying though, but so you have to demonstrate to me that statistical or that factual circumstance to justify why I would worry about profiling in the first place. And then we have to even have a discussion about how this profiling is going to make any difference, because in a sense, I don't really care about finding an audience. I just care about hitting it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not worried about if I wasted some of my time on a brain that can't learn. I'm really just saying I want to say something that when it hits most brains, it gets the most reaction possible out of the most brains. So I don't even need to profile, right? And in the sense that, beyond the sense that we're profiling the entire human population genetically, as an audience as a generic thing, and saying which message to which audience is going to generate the most interest and the most energy and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And if that goes by an individual basis, would you give it more credit? because it keeps working. These advertising companies or companies, period, keep refining their processes.
Right. And again, I'm not, see that again, you're just missing the point. I mean, I did make it kind of clear that what I'm working on, okay, is coming up with the good, objective clinical argument. I'm trying to just find the, when you really want to go to the facts, okay, when you really want to prove the point, to make that argument, to have that argument in a box that can be pulled out by anybody and said, okay, this is the argument that's been made. It's been well constructed, and it is perfect. Okay, it's not ho-ho. You know what I mean? It hasn't been converted into generic public Dorito food. Okay, it's not a tortilla or whatever, a burrito. It's still,
no matter how
it's still just analyzing what nutrients are required to provide the sustenance. It's not about making it palatable to an audience. I'm not doing the palatable to audience thing.
I guess I can see that, and neither am I currently. So I have no ground to stand on whenever I judge you. It seems we're discussing the nature of your very channel currently, and
well, yeah, the nature of the process of this discussion. To me, the point of the discussion, okay, is for us to filter through the bullshit that gets in the way of making the argument. Okay, try to figure out. We could even talk about strategies. We weren't really doing that. Okay. But I mean, I was more on the subject of, let's get to being able to make this simple argument in such a form that it is like a skeleton key. You know, it unlocks the most brains possible. It's like such an indestructible, you know, it's like the perfect joke. I use that as an example, like a Monty Python skit where they had the perfect joke and whoever heard the joke died laughing, you know. And so it's like you're trying to make the perfect argument that just can't fail. You know, whatever brain you throw it at, the brain says, okay, I get it. So I'm saying that to me would be a good objective, is if you could actually construct these few paragraphs of perfect rhetoric, you know, perfect Shakespearean argumentation, and somebody hears them, they just say, okay, I'm devastated. You got me.
Shakespeare goes over a lot of people's heads. There's a lot to go over. The skeleton key has a certain shape, which looks probably something like a bizarre tree. Okay, well, while you're busy with the phone, I guess I'll be talking to the chat. Hello, chat. This is a new episode of Something Cringy with Ines. Hi.
Yeah, see, again, you're just wasting your time, you know, maximizing it, in my opinion. So you have time to talk to the little morons, and you just kind of.
Well, you're busy.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have talked to the chat. I'm just saying, again, the example is that you have your opportunity to do something constructive and you didn't do anything constructive. That's my only one. But whatever.
Okay. So constructive in the most clinical sense. Okay, I'll give that to you. See, the problem is if you work that way, the people can, they have thousands and millions of opportunities and ways of dismissing. It's just a fact. They're doing it day by day. I guess you would agree to that. And you've already...
Okay, clearly, though, they have a psychology, or they have there's a method to their madness. Okay, so I'll just say that, like we could see, like
competing interests.
So not that I know much about tennis, but you know, this Serena Williams lost a match quite legitimately, and it's a typical New York audience, right? They just can't accept reality, so they sit there and boo the winner, right? Okay, make her feel like she has to apologize for something when she didn't do anything wrong except play better tennis. And, you know, just turn the whole world upside down. Like somehow the reality was that Serena Williams was horribly ripped off when she fucking lost. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid. And you're saying, well, what's causing that? I mean, what is this nonsense where reality is just turned upside down merely for convenience of a bunch of fucking idiots?
And I'm saying there's better ways of convincing them than just calling them idiots. It's not a very refined process. It may be right.
I'm not trying to convince them at the moment. I'm just
Why
diagnosing.
not?
I'm diagnosing. Okay, you're saying that these people have all of these rationales. I'm saying the rationales are quite focused, and they always have to do with some sort of personal, subjective, ego bullshit. Okay, it's a New York audience that does it all the time. All right, and they do it for a reason. So I'm just saying that we can understand that that's a very specific kind of psychology.
Yeah, somewhere around hero worship and defending of what you're identifying with. It's someone who kept winning in your name, in your head.
Yeah, well, whether you call that excessive nationalism or whatever the thing is, it's obviously in excess. And I'm just saying that that's a diagnosable thing. It's not like you have to worry about 15 million other problems. That's really the only problem. Outside of that problem, the winner would have been called the winner and there wouldn't have been any bullshit.
Yeah, but okay, there's millions of participants in that ruse, let's call it, and most of them are not even aware or consciously aware that it's a ruse. They just have these prepared argument in their head. They want to say you are just, and put a period after the word, whichever comes after the just.
But I'm just dealing with your argument that somehow you can't fight, okay, the irrationality. Because what I'm going to argue is the irrationality does have a real source. It's a real specific kind of bacterial infection, if you want to call it that. It's a specific kind of illness or sickness. And what I'm saying is that you can diagnose it and you can correct for it. And you don't have to worry about this. They'll always have 900 other rationalizations. No, there's only a specific number of rationalizations that are the real problem, a specific kind of bent perspective. And once you fix that dent, okay, they can start to see straight.
Well, why not go even deeper then? I guess the one cause is actually the discomfort that goes along with admitting something. I guess if you start there, the other problems don't even pop up. Not the free problems you propose, and not the 900 problems I propose, which
Right.
are obviously.
That's why I tend to focus my argument on this idea that once you recognize hard that you're an asshole, that your motivations are disgusting most of the time, okay, that most of your thoughts are scheming, wheelie dealy bullshit that just has to do with you. And even though you know that is goddamn childish and silly and stupid, your brain does it still right in front of you. It humiliates itself. And once you have that humility, in my opinion, like in any kind of sincere way, then this argument that this life thing might be horribly corrupt and insanely stupid becomes, oh yeah, I might be able to see that now because I can see that I'm horribly corrupt and awfully stupid. And, I'll even say I love you to things that, no, I just want to fuck you.
Even you just now tangling it to a word, sincerity. Some people are able to overcome whatever it is that stops them from doing it and label the sincerity thing as its inversion, its opposite. So even that is not a guaranteed factor. Every topic, every kind of way of expressing something.
Look, I narrowed the context to I said you say it sincerely that you're an asshole. If you do it sincerely, okay, if it's a real statement you're making inside yourself, then it's not just some trivial, I pretended to call myself an asshole. So shit, I did qualify the statement. recognizing that some people will say I'm an asshole and they're not, they don't mean it, not even close.
Yeah, I suspect it within myself because I don't have that emotional connection to me feeling like an asshole. Because most of the time I feel normal, neutral, right? But actually, I should be going around calling myself all sorts of things. But then again, there's this initial visceral counter argument to that tries to keep me from dying or from falling off a
Well,
rooftop half
I'll try to give
accidentally.
an example. It's like when you are really humiliated versus almost humiliated. You know what I mean? Or you're in a real car accident versus almost in a car accident. Almost in a car accident can help you be aware, but
Yeah.
being in a real car accident really wakes you up and says, here it is right in your face, fucker. You know, so, and so if you're making a real mistake, a real hard mistake, it does give you some humility in you, generally speaking, and you can, like I said, you can almost be humiliated, and that'll teach you, if you're smart, you can imagine what could have happened, and that'll kind of scare you, and you'll gain something from it. But I'm saying there is a difference between people who really get humiliated and people who don't, in terms of their confidence.
The really part in your statement should be uh, probably means over a long period of time, right? Because people keep forgetting. I know people, they went through some shit really horrid, and they still keep bouncing back to their psychology. So the sheer punishment factor is.
I mean, you can't fix an alcoholic by making them have a car accident. So I'm not saying you can fix, psychology that's pushing people hard in a direction. I'm just saying, for the sake of an argument about a perspective in terms of philosophy, um, this this part of being a humble human and recognizing your good fortune, so to speak, not being somebody who thinks they're entitled, but recognizes instead how goddamn lucky I am not to have been born in Nigeria or something. I'm saying that perspective is very powerful in this conversation. Somebody who recognizes how lucky they are rather than resents how they don't have everything. It's a huge difference in the perspective.
Those mechanisms we're discussing, I see them pop up in your very chat right now. I can pinpoint some of the things we're throwing out there, or I'm uh, I don't know the English word right now. Um, I'm alleging, right? I'm saying these are mechanisms, and I see them just in the display of the chat, at least there. And when I look into situations from my past, I see them there as well. So there's this, and as I'm speaking, as I'm saying that, I'm having this dismissal mechanism myself. So, hey, this guy is just saying, you're just saying. This guy is just saying, you're just, or you just want to do this. So, if I, there's an inevitable conclusion that I think there has to be a better process. And it always comes down to, as we both know, I guess, communication and wait. You're getting frustrated because I keep discussing effects within many people and you're discussing an effect within one person. Is that it? The genuine recognition of something changes the behavior. Is
No,
that your argument?
I'm just saying that I'm perfectly willing. If somebody writes a really great script, okay, and they want me to edit it, or they want me to even act in it or participate in some way, I'm all for doing that, okay? And if I even have to wear a gorilla suit and I still think it works as a plot device, I'm wearing it, no problem, okay? I'll do whatever I have to do. But I'm not uh in the marketing business. Okay. I don't, even if I, even, even if I was, I'd find it so abhorrent to have
It is
to,
actually.
to have to paint something the right color to sell it. Okay. To have to sit there and worry about it. It has to be the right shade of red, you know, and you have to have just enough orange in it to, you know, do this to people's psychology. I don't even want to waste neurons figuring out that's like the anus. Okay. That's the back door. And I'm not interested in back doors. Okay. So I don't want to get to people's understanding through the back door. I want to walk right up to the front door. Okay. And do it frontally. Okay.
That's the other side of the medal that I proposed, you driving over like a train, I guess. So yeah, in some weird way we agree there, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, but I'm all for people who, yes, if you can do that, if you can be a cynical marketing shyster cunt for the purpose of ephilism, then great. Thanks for doing the, you know, the dirty work, so to speak.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
That's
but don't ask me, okay?
okay.
Waste any more time than, like I said, I'll zip up a gorilla suit, but I'm really not going to spend a lot of my mental energy on figuring out strategies to get in the butthole.
Well, I guess we found a consensus there. That's the key word is dirty work. Yeah.
I mean, it's all work. So I'm just saying that clearly, I'm not saying it's not you know, it's not a legitimate. It's a fact that cooking this, making, you know, hiding the vegetables in the dessert works. So go ahead and try to hide the vegetables in the dessert, but just don't ask me to do it because I'm like a chef thing or something, and I just can't do this. I cannot hide vegetables in desserts.
So the next thing I want to address is like the sheer bottomless cringy appearance of mine in the last episode. Wasn't that awesome? That was the most cringy shit you've ever experienced. Well, there is a science behind that, but
it really wasn't. I'm just saying it really wasn't in any way cringy or anything in the 10-year history of people who have been watching my channel anyway. It's not even close. So,
well, your cringing sensibilities are different than the ones of your audience, I guess.
They're complaining because my shorts are too short. So I'm just going to keep showing my shorts to them because it bothers them. So that part is almost fun. Okay, it's almost fun to do that just for my personal
guilty pleasure.
Okay, that's just for me, but I'm just conceding that's just something. That's one of my little evil pleasures. That has nothing to do with the cause. So,
I think the sheer admitting that
I'm just saying, let's just concede. I'm just conceding that's just a self-indulgence and it has nothing to do with the cause.
There we go. And I argue pointing that out is one more factor in conveying sincere sincerity, I guess. So if it goes on and goes on and goes on, and you never point it out, right? You can call it a stylistic choice or whatever, manipulative, but pointing that out is, and the filter that legitimizes it is people's perception. So if you see something pop up like as a comment, right, 20, 30 more times, and you go after the likes, it was liked 60, 70, 700 times, it's obvious, it becomes more obvious that those people who speak care about those things. And there's, I argue, go for those, right? Go for those topics that people care about, and in a sense, get them out of the way. If they keep caring, they keep caring, right? There's usually it means there's something hidden in there.
No, I think it usually just means that, look, the assholes fart a lot. So that's all it means. It just means that, you know, people fart easier than they talk. And so that's all you get is the farters, to be crude about it. And so letting them decide the agenda, in my opinion, would be idiotic. So I'm really not going to change my behavior based on the fact that a few little cranks have to worry about things that are totally irrelevant to the substance of the video. So why should that be deciding my agenda? Because those people, in my opinion, are lost causes anyway. They're not even what I'm after. They're not the fish I'm trying to catch.
What I would put counter to that is, again, the getting it out of the way part, because some things people like keep fixating even if they don't wanna. So they repeat it in their heads. It's like a loop: short shorts, short shorts, short shorts, and they can't think further. And if I don't say
that's not the majority of them, is what I'm saying. Is the majority wouldn't even see it if somebody didn't point it out. So I'm just saying it's not really what should be setting the agenda. The squeaky wheel shouldn't be getting the grease. So I'm just saying I think I understand that as a grease provider, I'm really not supposed to be fooled by squeaky wheels.
There's different stages of awareness, if I reconstructed this correctly. There's the situation where you look at something and it's obvious and you've processed it and you've already said it. So then there's one stage below where you see it, you process it, and keep it to yourself. Then there's the stage where you're seeing it and processing it. And I'd argue that's where the loops happen. And there's the stage where you see something and don't even quite pinpoint it. Your eyes are just drawn to it. And those are even more prone to those not subliminal, but subconscious loops. Like, that's how intriguing pictures work, I guess. So there's something about it where you just where your brain is not comfortable enough going with thoughts or with formulated thoughts.
I'm just saying that obviously there's a demographic, and I am conceding that a certain percentage of the demographic is useless. Okay, they're just belligerently, as I state, retarded or stupid. They just have no interest. Their brain will not do logic. It won't do 2 + 2 math. It just won't do any of the stuff necessary to be a useful human. And I'm just saying the rest of the audience, though, has this capacity once they have gleaned passion. Once they have been motivated to realize, the wheel turns and the wheels are saying, this is something I should be aware of. And even if it's only once a week that it occurs to them, then it becomes twice a week and 3 times a week. That's all you're trying to do, is create a seed of, that will end up creating a vine that will strangle their brain eventually. And they'll be just, so you're just trying to infect people. Let's just say that's all.
Okay.
The real objective is to infect them and then allow the process to happen. Okay, so you're saying that there's key things that make people into thoughtful people. So what I'm saying is there's key ingredients, this humiliation thing, this recognize you're an asshole, a few things. And once a person has those ingredients, this stuff will start, the soup will swirl inside their brain and they will become fully human.
Lol, fully human. I think I would add to that feasibility is an important factor. As you can't, for example, create awareness when you're 60 hours a week on a construction site, and while you're carrying those logs, you're thinking, okay, shit, I should do something, but I'm caught up here. And feasibility is just one of the greatest filters for that, I guess. So what if you
so that would be part of my argument. Part of my argument is that, yes, that's part of the problem. Is the first audience you get are the useless refuse of society who aren't working and aren't functional and are broken in lots of ways. And they're the first ones to show up and type shit in the comments, right? Is the dysfunctional. All right. And so you're not getting to the real audience. It's like on YouTube, for example. I mean, if you add up all these participants, what's the average IQ or what's the average age? 6, it's not very good audience, not a very good demographic. So clearly, I can't from this location expect to be fighting in the real war. I'm fighting the people in the back lines or something. I'm fighting the kitchen staff or something. I'm not really in the game.
Yeah, but I accept it as legitimate. You're spreading your seed. Yeah, uh, among that's a good analogy. The kitchen staff, right? So they get some of your seed on their hands, and they carry the plates to the outside world, which is the people eating in the restaurant or in the stadium, whatever the analogy was. And some of the seed drips onto their plates, and slowly but surely it keeps dribbling down into the food, and there's another seed planted. I guess that's yeah, it's totally legitimate.
Yeah, well, it's really not what I'm after. That's almost an incidental potential benefit that you might infect people through infecting, these people. But the real point is that what you're really trying to do is create the super bomb. You're trying to create the infection bomb and just explode it, and then it'll get on everybody. You won't have to worry about any of this shit because it'll become a meme. A social meme. Like instead of being nationalistic, people will be passionately sensitive to torture or something like that. You're really just trying to say that their passions are completely idiotic, and all I have to do is, it's an arbitrary conditioning that's decided there in New York. Like I said, it's like comparing the New York audience. The New York audience is retarded for completely stupid reasons, not good reasons, and no legitimate reasons. So I should be able to unretard them.
I think reality is against such things as those bombs, right? There's more of such a bomb would be represented in chess as one move with the queen or something, because the queen is pretty much overpowered, and so on and so on. So the queen moving one way and defeating one figure is an analogy for what you're proposing, and as opposed to the game plan altogether. I think the more you can deliberately predict and anticipate, the more the thing can actually move on and grow. And to make it perfectly clear, I'm not talking about your approach anymore. I'll concede that your seed spreading is, let's say, enough, okay, because you did a lot of it, and I'm not even telling you to stop. So,
well, it's not the point, but I'm still going to defend. You can say you disagree, that's fine, but I'm still going to defend the idea that no, this is a bomb you can make. Okay, there is a meme bomb. They've gone off in the past. The reason why things are the way they are is because meme bombs go off. Okay, something goes viral and a whole culture believes it, even though it's bullshit. I mean, Islam is Islam for no good reason. Christianity is Christianity for no good reasons. There's cathedrals in Europe for no good fucking reason, except it was a meme. I'm just saying that's what you got to replace. You got to replace this idiotic meme with some sort of reasoned meme where people actually have respect for facts and the truth. All right. Yeah, I know that sounds, oh, that's crazy. Humans can't have respect for the facts and truth and evidence, but I'm saying I think they really can. And I think it's just about how badly kids are raised. And if you just could break that, that whole fantasy fairy tale, we love you and the world loves you and that's why you exist because you're an expression of our love and blah, 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 and raise kids to say you're a little Frankenstein full of goddamn selfish motivations. And guess what? You're going to have to try to learn to live your life in some way where you're not a fucking menace.
Menace courage.
Menace courage. I don't know what that means.
It's a play on my name.
You really, yeah. You just do have one road, right? Me. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. That's very cute.
Well, I just thought I'd take advantage since you opened the door. I thought I might as well take a little bit of a dump there. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So I don't think that those, especially the big religions, are coincidentally successful. It's not only the raping and pillaging and taking over and instilling and reproducing and establishing. It's not only those. I guess the people kind of hang on to the merit of ideas, even of side ideas or little details, and just swallow
Well, my point is that you could say, look, the Incas or the Aztecs, anything that gets successful, they have a structure of bullshit. Okay, the Egyptians, anyone, anything. So I'm just saying, clearly, the structure of bullshit is arbitrary. It all has the same themes. They're usually some sort of life affirming, we're going to win, we're going to fight the gods, we're going to fight the fight. And, you know, it's all this kind of bullshit. But I'm just saying it's clearly just a fable. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's talking bears or talking pigs or talking ducks. Clearly, yes, the meme engine has always been ignorantly life affirming. And it's only been life affirming because of the ignorant part.
If it were to change slowly into a life, disagreeing ideology, at what wouldn't there be an inevitable turning point where there's so much decimation has gone on that the doubtful, the life reaffirming parts keep growing again?
Well, that's like saying idiocracy will always win. And I guess what I'm arguing is once you have intelligence done right, okay, there won't be any chance of it. It's almost like having an honest communist. Okay. I mean, let's say we actually had somewhere in all of the world an honest communist. Okay. Not one who is just, playing a us versus them kind of game, or, know what I'm saying? They've all been broken in the sense of none of them have adhered to any principle. Okay. So I'm just saying, let's say they did it in a really an honest way. And I don't mean like you give welfare whores all the money kind of communism. I mean communism where you still have some sort of earned society and blah, 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 blah. That's clearly going to be a huge winner, in my opinion. Okay. I mean, it's just going to win so big that there'll be absolutely no way for any other crap to any fungus of change, all right, to worm its way in, because it'll be so fucking successful and so much better than anything in the past that there's no way you could argue with it. I mean, obviously capitalism's easy to pick on because, well, statistically, the income inequity is worse than under the kings of England, right? So we actually have worse income inequity when people were called peasants and serfs. Okay, we've actually managed to do it worse than the king.
Relative to one another, but on an absolute scale, I mean, I don't know how many people are trapped in medical conditions that make this their life in their eyes not worth it, or at least somewhat something that they could call not worth it, or someone else could call not worth it. But overall, the standards have grown, and I guess that's why capitalism gets this huge.
Well, I'd say the standards are lower. I'm saying that obviously the peasants and the serfs were smart enough to know they're getting fucked. Okay, and they knew who was fucking them. It was the king. So that's the irony of this circumstance: is the idiots are sitting there voting for kings. They're voting for I mean, you couldn't get the profile of a king any better than Donald Trump, right? He's a fucking inheritance wealther. He's got a son named Barron. I mean, come on. How close to exactly voting for monarchy can you get? Essentially they did it. They voted for monarchy.
But that's just an effect description, not an intent description, right?
No, it's a clearly an intent of idiocracy. It's clearly an intent of people so fucking stupid, okay, that they don't even know what they're voting for. They're so blind. They think he's fighting that when he is that. I mean, they think he's fighting the government and the king.
I think many who've voted this way, I don't know. I have no point of reference, and I would argue neither do you, as to why people voted the way they voted, because there's.
Well, no, I think I do have a point of reference. I mean, to say I have no point of reference.
In a way.
I'm sorry, I can't accept the premise, okay? I'm not going to accept I don't have a point of reference. What the fuck do you mean? I live in the country. I think I do know why they did.
I don't think that's enough.
Well, I think that is enough in the sense that I know I'm fairly knowledgeable on politics. I've only studied it my whole fucking life. So I think I do understand the evolution of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And clearly the problem, the deciding factor was there's always these white males love wealth. Okay, that's a problem. And now they hate Mexicans. So clearly with those two things combined were a huge problem. So yes, the fact that the Democratic Party has now become the party of welfare whores and immigrants is why this happened. But I'm just saying it was still a potential that could have happened, because still most white males, even without the illegal immigrant issue, are still idol worshiping the wealthy. I mean, they love rich people and they don't care whether they earned it or not. They want to inherit $1 billion. They want an unfair advantage. They like cheating in races.
That's true. But I think there was a lot of media coverage of Trump, and
let's not talk about this. Let's not talk about this. I'm sorry. There wasn't a lot of media coverage of Trump. I mean, come on.
There was.
There was a ton of it, and all the facts.
There was a ton of it. Yeah, even I saw it.
People didn't care about the facts. They all knew before he got elected that he was a tax cheat. That's why he wasn't showing us his tax returns, because obviously he wasn't a billionaire, and obviously he was lying through his fucking teeth, and they just couldn't care less because he was going to go hit a Mexican with a stick. And that's all they wanted to do. They wanted to see some Mexicans get hit over the head with a stick.
Okay, first off, that's the mechanism I was talking about, the you just wanna. And second off, I think a lot of it was a protest vote that happened to be within the two-party frame.
Well, I'm sorry. It really wasn't in a two-party frame. It was in the same frame that got Ronald Reagan elected. Okay, I'm saying that frame has always existed, and the problem is white male fucking scuzzery. Okay, I mean, they're just too fucking stupid.
Okay, I guess there's more versatile motivations hidden there, but okay, let's run with that for simplicity's sake. So, what's next?
I don't know what that even means, but the argument is I'm saying that psychology, okay, the fact that people can be that stone cold ignorant, that they just essentially elected monarchy. They voted for it, and they don't even realize that's what they voted for. It was a monarch. I'm saying that level of stupidity should be correctable. That's my only argument. And so the level of stupidity that has people thinking it's okay to live off of a biosphere and all these animals dying and all this shit happening, and it's okay I'm doing okay, so it's all right if other humans are in mental hospitals, chewing their own toes off. That's okay. And if it's okay if it's born, babies are born with their fucking heads tied together, and that's okay. And any kind of torture you can come up with is okay because it's not happening to me. I'm saying that is so stone cold stupid in terms of a philosophical point of view that yes, I should be able to beat that. I should be able to overwhelm that with a fucking meme that makes it obvious you can't think that way. You can't justify something because you're doing okay. You have to justify it because overall it's working.
I don't even I can't even say anything against that because I agree.
Right. So that's all I'm saying. That's the meme bomb. I'm saying I should be able to make the meme bomb. Okay. Religion dies. People become rational human beings in the sense that they at least accept these minimums, like fairness first. Oh yeah, that would be a horrible idea. Fairness first. No, I think they should be able to understand that that should be the first thing we're after is fairness.
And the second thing is I'm all of this time I'm actually discussing or trying to discuss the method, which would be essentially the list of arguments that I composed. So if those are followed or subverted, they both of those should have the same outcome.
Right? Now we're just talking as theorists, right? So you're just presenting your theory of I have a demolition derby car that is going to wipe out all the other demolition derby cars because it has spikes in the right locations, and I figured out the weight distribution and blah, 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 blah. And this car is the car. And I'm saying, no, I think this car is going to work and blah, 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 blah. So we're just arguing about
the method.
A bunch of vernacular. You're saying you have power vernacular. I say, no, my power vernacular is better than your power vernacular, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you're fine. So just do it. Okay. I'm just saying, do it. Show you, demonstrate it. Okay. Perform your performance, perform your art. And then we can have a discussion about, yes, well, you really outdid me on that one. And yes, your forehand is much better than my backhand and blah, 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 blah.
Okay. I guess I should try that. Yeah, for our next conversation to take place, I should actually finish that video I was talking about. That would be one of the cornerstones. So yeah, so far I have nothing. I mean, I am working in the background on something else, but it has nothing to do with anything along these lines.
Yeah, well, fine. Just saying that that's the nature of my strategizing, is just basically looking at this field and saying, what do I need as weapons? And I'm saying the biggest weapon is the fact that people are stone cold stupid. I mean, the obvious place to attack is this gigantic gaping ignorance asshole. You know what I mean? That's the target, is ignorance. So that's why my focus is saying, come on, there's got to be a way to finally kill religion. Come on. This shouldn't even be an issue, these fairy stories. I mean, God damn it.
And one of the problems with, for example, killing religion is the finiteness of a human life, right? We keep seeing, I'm sorry, I'm talking about movies again. We keep seeing movies where the argument is, oh, these old people have seen the patterns, right? They have seen the patterns and they see the young people step right into it. Okay. So, this finiteness is a problem. What's an obvious counter to limited time? Of course, speed, right? It's one of the conveyance speed is a factor.
That's the real problem with most movies, is you really can't show, like say death as it's portrayed in movies. There's always some sort of, yes, I'm dying, and here's some worldly advice: don't eat any wooden donuts, and blah 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 blah. Don't molest your kids, blah blah blah. So, and then and that's death. Death is portrayed in this almost
romantic manner,
and obviously you can't get the feel for months and weeks of illness, and you're losing 10 pounds a week and you're wasting away, and your skin is getting all fucked up, and you can't really get a feel for how long and hard the process is in this little 20 seconds on the deathbed where the person goes, I'm going to croak now.
Yeah, that's
You know, I mean, it's just too fucking prettied up.
and but people are looking for ways to counter that lack of perception. For example, do you know these photo series where a person, I don't know, they document their hair growth or something, or their weight loss process, and they take a picture every day and then just play it like a movie, and it takes for, I don't know, those 2.5 years take 14 seconds. That's a way of conveying information over time, for example.
Yeah, I just mean that you can never do in a 2 hour movie the the hardness of the hours of the anguish. You know what I mean? Feeling
Yeah, of
scared
course.
for 5 seconds is one thing. Feeling afraid for 4 months is another thing. You know,
Yeah.
so I just mean that there's certain limitations to the medium itself in terms of really getting to the hardness that is hard suffering. You know, it just doesn't do that very well.
Um,
The short version isn't usually going to be the I get it version. That's why most people can
yeah,
watch 9/11 shows and they watch all this drama and this horror because it's in such little tiny pieces. You know, it does a
yeah, it's easy on
tiny,
the eyes.
yeah, tiny bit of radiation, and they say, "Oh, it's nice and warm." The radiation. Oh, yeah, give me some more radiation. It's nice and warm. You know, but yeah, if I gave them the full month of radiation, then they'd understand that this radiation is no fun at all.
I agree, but there combine the introduction of the mechanism, or the um, the whatever, the one little movie, the series of pictures movie. Um, they get the concept into their head, and they extrapolate. If they're smart about it, they can extrapolate from this. So, oh shit, this is an entire day. Oh shit, this is an entire day. Oh shit, this is an entire day. Hey, wait, there's something happening on those days except those pictures being taken. Oh shit, what's that happening? And there's this unfolding happening if people are smart about it, or masochistic enough. And that's one part of the problem. The masochism in that sense is needed. And how do you promote masochism without promoting sadism along with it?
Uh, yeah, well, that's sort of gets to my argument that that's one of the things you're fighting against is the fact that even me, as a total um, humiliated, defeated character, I still have this urge to fight for my life or to fight for my dignity and to fight for. I mean, we are built to be a surviving organism. We're not built to be a failing organism. And clearly, genetically, you know, I'm descendant from a long lineage of winners, not losers,
Sure.
quite obviously.
Otherwise,
So,
we wouldn't be
you
here.
know, you know, so that's in my nature is to do this I gotta win thing. And you know, so that's a huge, yes, that's a huge problem with the meme is that the meme again is this humiliated, defeated meme, and that and somehow people have to recognize that it isn't about that character of the meme; it's about its character as the truth. And so, you know, but that's like the same argument you make with religion. It's not about how the philosophy makes you feel. It's about what the philosophy is. Is it candy or is it food? Is it junk? Is it healthy? Is it right or is it wrong? And it's just plain wrong to believe in fairy tales.
Um, well, if you put the fairy tale aspect aside for a bit, there's the feeling about something, and there's the recognizing something is right or wrong. Uh, I would suggest developing ways for both to improve at the same time. They don't have to be caused by the same thing, but if they happen to maximize each other in the best sense or in the best scenario, that would be the most effective or efficient, right?
Well, I guess I just see them as two oil and water. So I just, I'm saying I don't disagree that there's a way of getting people off the wagon they're on and onto another wagon, and there's all kinds of ways to do that. And maybe some of
Incentive versus punishment, I guess, or positive incentive versus negative, right? It should be, there should be a
yes, you can lead them to water by seducing them with fruit juice or whatever the
or
bullshit.
oil.
So, okay, I'm saying I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm just saying it's not my nature to try to think of those mechanisms. It's just
Hold on, I think I might have to do something.
okay. Do something like this is doing nothing.
Am I overexposed now? Luckily not.
Uh,
Okay. We picked quite the wrong time for this, at least in accounts of daylight. Whatever.
It's a better time in the US of A, I guess I would argue, just because more people are awake and all that kind of crap. So, but it doesn't matter to me. You picked the time, okay? You suggested today. I found your email 5 hours later and said, okay, how about now? So, I mean, that's the way it works.
Circumstances and such. Yeah,
yes.
I get it.
I mean, if I knew you were going to send an email at 6 o'clock in the morning, well, then maybe I would have woken up at 8 o'clock to read it, but I didn't.
No problem. There's no guilt assertion, whatever. English is a hard language, and I have to filter it through others.
It was neither your preference or my preference that led to this exact moment in time being the point where we were talking. So it wasn't like my agenda decided it or your agenda decided it. It was decided by others.
Enough with the clock now. Let's jump to geography. In your last video, you expressed your trouble remembering where I came from, and you probably think I deem it kind of important because I repeated it 4 or 5 times, and I don't actually. Geography isn't my thing either, right? I think those borders are pretty much bullshit in some sense, in an essential sense. Anyway, what I was getting at is me repeating that I just didn't want to have the wrong information float out there and have it fall back to me, because in some sense, by doing this, I'm basically craving accountability, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing myself out there, and even when I don't like it, I just say a relevant or random fact about myself to make my secretive self uncomfortable. It just happens to happen, and partially I do it intentionally because I know at some point if I keep doing this, I'll have to be out there, like out there. And I am a pretty secretive person by nature. So probably a lot of people say this and put themselves out there anyway, but the reason is probably questionable. And my reason is definitely, the core reason is accountability, because I think conflating truth and power to one mechanism, accountability is key. And there is gonna be a point in information technology and exchange where truth is just faster than fabrication. I think that point is inevitable. And again,
I think I totally disagree. I mean, I think that's one of the things we're fighting right now, is the fact that lies are so much quicker and easier.
Yeah. For now they are.
The truth is always going to be more than one sentence, where the lie can be one sentence, and the truth has always got to be more than that. You got to qualify the truth.
Sure. But there is also some mitigating factors, such as there being a good enough for a truth or for a circumstance. Our vocabulary is gonna improve. I think, especially with something like transhumanism, where you're constantly wired to a calculator and can in real time process something which would take you 17 seconds on a calculator as of now, and that's probably going to be exploited. So this strive for effectivity.
I don't think that's going to enhance people's philosophical perspective at all. That'll just be for jerking off. I mean, that's not going to, that's just going to be candy. There's not going to be any food value in technology.
I think there's going to be speed value and expression per second, or whatever word you want to insert into that expression, information, or attacks per second.
Because we're still in some points you're just not getting that. I think the truth is so goddamn simple, and the only thing in the way are lies. So stupid lies, stupid notions of just absolute nonsense, religion and wishful thinking, and all kind of bullshit. The truth is ugly and crude and simple, and you're not going to need any kind of augmented transhumanism brain function to be able to see it.
You're not going to need it, but people are probably going to crave it because this competition.
I think they're not going to create it for the purpose of thinking. They're going to create it for the purpose of entertainment. So I just don't see it as having anything to do with changing philosophical, psychological, political perspective. It's not going to enhance any of those things. It's just going to make it worse, not better. It's going to empower the distractions, and it's not going to make the important subjects at all interesting.
I think the first party to utilize the minimization of the gap between usefulness and entertainment is probably going to get ahead, because there's going to be large groups that hunt effectivity, and there's going to be large groups that hunt maximum pleasure. Let's frame it like that. And if you incentivize a right answer or an effective answer
I could just point to the Google algorithm. Do you think the Google algorithm has become better over time, or it becomes worse over time? I'm saying the technology is just being used to turn it into a manipulation tool. So now everybody's looking at a version of the internet that's just a reflection of their own desires and wants. They're not looking at the world anymore. They're just looking at the parts of the world that please them. All the news channels are now decidedly biased in their coverage. They're all feeding an interest group that they will not offend, and they will do everything they can to offend the other, believers. So, I mean, they're becoming Christian versus Islam. I mean, that's, the politics is getting that black and white. And so I'm just saying, I don't see any evidence where technology is going to improve perspective. It's just going to, again, like I said, turn the world into what I want it to be. It's not going to turn me into something that has to adapt to reality. It's going to give me a reality that's adapted to me.
Well, we're currently at the stage where we are fish and trying to get on land. We have these lung-like things that barely function. We've got some sloppy arms to crawl in the mud. That's the stage
we have a really good brain, and all we have is
technologically.
We have bad motivations. It has nothing. Our brain is incredibly functional. The only problem with our brain is that everybody, as I pointed out, they haven't been humiliated enough to realize they're using their brain exclusively as a scheming tool. They're not using it as a knowledge or know the truth tool. And that's a fact. Okay. And once they recognize that they have to spend their neurons are valuable, that the the thoughts in their heads are valuable, and that they can't be wasting this brain space on just composing idiotic strategies to get my, my best friend's wife in my bed. As long as my motivations are horrible and I'm allowing them to own my brain's not going to do anything. And it doesn't matter how transhuman you make it, doesn't matter how big you make my brain. If I never have a disconnect between what should be motivating my brain or what my brain should be tasked to do, then my brain's going to fail.
There I'm going to throw in the argument that old people are slowly getting it, and that's because they had more occurrences of patterns and more repetitions, so that it could really be hammered into them that there's actually for once there's effects to what they're doing.
I don't see many examples of old people.
Well, if you combine that with speed, right, with communicational speed, I mean, theoretically, it should be possible that you run enough simulations so that you see, oh shit, there's a pattern. It keeps repeating.
But you're not going to run the simulations. They're again, you're saying that you're going to have the choice. First, I'm going to say that Google's not going to give you the choice. It's just going to spam you with an internet that it profiled you to want. So it's going to just spam you with what you want to hear in the first place. So the technology is never going to be fair enough for you to even have an opportunity to hear at the other side. And even if you did, again, if your motivation is to get what you want to hear what you want to hear, then again, that's all you're going to hear. If you don't know there's an obligation to do something else, you're never going to satisfy your obligations.
The need of a person to not perceive themselves as a villain is, I don't know, is it bound to run into a wall of truth?
Well, I say that most people go to their graves not thinking they're a villain. They're singing My Way, John McCain. Oh yeah, I did it my way. That's right. I was, part of the Keating Five, and I stole tons of billions of dollars. Even though I was married to a rich woman with a ton of money, I seem to have this terrible need to steal more money. I mean, and I get to sing My Way when I'm dead. Yeah, everybody sing My Way. I did it my way. I was a selfish cunt, my way.
Do you think he was 100% convinced of that while he was singing it?
I'm saying that, the odds are that
I'll be listening.
The older you get, the more Republican you vote, which in my opinion is just sort of an example of people being in denial. So again, I don't think they want to hear that, oh yeah, I really did a lot of shitty stuff in my life, and I really did neglect my kids, and I did turn my son into an alcoholic, and I did fuck it up, and I did do this. And they don't want to take responsibility for everything. They just blame the fucking foreigners. Not that they're not worth blaming, because they are stupid pieces of shit that show up here and think they own the goddamn place.
But yeah, blame towards failure should go towards the right direction. So, and I'm not only discussing a should here. At some point, it even becomes an is.
Well, I've made this point like a million times in my videos, but I'll just make it one more just because I think it's a good point to make. I mean, I'm not really angry at idiocracy. I'm angry at the intellectuals, because they're the ones that should be smart enough to stop the idiocracy. They should be the ones who take control of the bus and drive it correctly. And they're all sitting there reading their newspapers and, cheating on their wives and doing all this typical bullshit. Like they can't figure out there's a real problem. Oh, no, there's a real problem, intellectuals. Newsflash, there's a real fucking problem. And your solutions absolutely suck because you have spent no time thinking about it.
Yeah, most of them probably think along the lines of, I can't do anything on my own. I have to have some power.
Yeah, well, somebody else is going to do it. They're like the draft dodgers that they probably were. They got their exemptions to go to college and they felt okay about that. Yeah, let the poor guy go to war. I don't want to go. So they've always been, bailing out whenever possible. They don't want to take any responsibility on this lifeboat. No accountability, as you say. They're just running from any accountability for the fact that it's really on them. I mean, the fact that this thing all goes bad it's on them, and they're not taking any responsibility for it.
But the first step would be knowledge about having evaded this responsibility, and they're probably at some points reminded of that. I mean, they can evade it way better than poor people. First off, they're not better. Trust me, I know poor people. They're not big into accountability of any kind either. So it's a more fundamental problem. So
Yes, I agree that it's a human problem, but I'm just saying the assumption is that smart people have an appreciation for the truth. And the disappointment is that smart people will sell the truth out just as fast as the poor man. And that's the part where you say, gee, they should know better.
Yeah, but there's this thing, that's where I think a certain justice mechanism is misappropriated or exploited. This why do I have to do it first? And it's gonna have many manifestations until it gets actually
Well,
challenged.
they don't even have to do anything, though. That's the part that's just so sad, is that, all they have to do is look, I lived through the beginnings of the internet, and there was this whole thing where, Microsoft proposed something that was sort of like what Google finally did, right? So Microsoft sort of proposed that, we'll put ads in the browser itself. And so there'll be this choice where the person who produces a web page could actually have ads connected to the browser. We'll display some ads, and everybody went insane. No, Microsoft can't do this. These motherfucking greedy cunts. Blah 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 blah. 2 years later, Google does it, and nobody complains. And it's that kind of hypocrisy and that kind of, again, we're just back to the New York audience saying that somehow my champion should be the champion. Whether she wins or doesn't win doesn't matter. She should be the champion. I don't care whether she won or not. It just, and it's the same thing. Google got a huge buy because Google is this intelligent fun company. And it's just as fucking evil. It says, I'm not evil. And they fell for it. I mean, it sits there and goes, look, we're not setting you up by giving this away for free for 2 years. We're not doing exactly what William Randolph Hearst did to drive all the other newspaper companies out of business. That is, lose money for 2 years and preposterous amounts, like just lose billions of dollars for 2 years. And then when everybody else is dead, we'll fucking snap the trap. And everybody fell for it, and those were supposed to be smart people. And the smart people were actually the Google engineers. They were actually the Google supporters. It was just I'm just saying that's, to me, smart people have really let us down.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. So it's this selfish thing, it's just this, like I said, as soon as you give people an opportunity to capitalize, say you give them the opportunity to be the capitalist, all of a sudden they're not a socialist anymore.
Exactly.
And that's the real root of the problem, is that principles mean nothing. The word is just so dead in this.
They're just fragile. I mean, that's set it up against. Look at it in terms of concepts. Principles is one concept against how many, and there's a frailty to it.
I know, but it gets sold out for so little. It gets sold out for a pair of sneakers. You know what I mean? I mean, they sell out so quick.
Yeah. I know that I've
say, Jesus, that's what I mean by the humility part. It's nobody's been humiliated, and nobody feels guilty enough, and nobody feels responsible enough, and no one feels like a big enough failure. Because I know those are all the things that keep me motivated, is the fact that I fail, okay? And I'm going to go to my grave failing. That bugs the fuck out of me. And it doesn't bug the fuck out of people. They just don't think about the fact that failure is going to be written on their fucking tombstone. You fucking sucked, because when it counted, what did you do? You bailed out. You sold out.
Yeah. And how how could we incentivize countering that? I mean, not
Well,
us,
I
but
understand that. I'm just saying that the incentive, I think, still has to be in the form of a performance art of some kind,
okay.
right? We have to say it in such a way, or pantomime it in such a way as it's understood, like the painting, the scream or something. You have to, you have to use every weapon you have to
Exactly, I
make
agree.
people see the real portrait of Darian Gray that's in their closet. Okay, there's a real portrait of your life, okay, that's in the closet, and somehow you have to make them see a glimpse of that real portrait and realize, oh, that's all I was a scheming, with snakes running through my brain and shit, and I was really just a maniacal, scheming, motherfucking piece of scum. Oh, damn, I don't want to be that.
Yeah, the first thing they do is when they see such a creature, is, oh yeah, I know that guy. I know someone exactly like that. Isn't it
Yeah,
tragic?
well, that's the problem. They think the painting is in somebody else's closet. Oh, yeah, that's him. Oh, yeah, that's my
Yeah,
brother-in-law.
I know that guy.
That's not
Yeah.
me. You know.
I can remember myself saying that, right? Because unglibbing is kind of a long process and still going, by the way.
Same here. I mean, I'm still working on making me, not distracted too much.
Yeah, and I guess well, let's start there. How do I get myself undistracted? What's the maximum uh, I could imagine? And I don't have the means in any way to make it happen on my own, but what could I imagine? What could inspire someone to make me or them or someone else in a way just efficient in
Well,
some
I
manner?
think that's just like changing your diet or something. Just figuring out I'm just not going to buy ho hos anymore. So a big move for me was the almost accidental removal of the television, from my life. And wow, that made a huge difference in terms of how much time I devoted to thinking, because I didn't have this easy turn on the stupid box to entertain me thing. You know what I mean? So I had to
Okay.
replace that entertainment time, and I replaced it with actual thinking time, which was a huge, oh, I didn't realize I had all this free time I didn't even know I had, because I was wasting it doing something I thought was productive, and it was totally
Okay.
destructive.
Um, well, I come from the other side. I still have my, well, TV, not in that sense, because I gave up TV because there are so many commercials. I now have the TV on my computer, and I still devote a lot of time to it, but I, at least on a
Yeah,
couple of
well, all I'm
levels.
saying is the way I did it was so cold turkey that I realized that this was my enemy, not my friend. So I don't go back
Okay.
to it at all. I know it's like drinking. Once you stop drinking and you're free, and you say, okay, I know what this free thing is. I got to stay free, and so I'm sort of in the stay free mode. Just don't even let it back into. Don't let it even. It's just it's toxic. Stay away from it. So I don't even watch anything. If I can avoid, if I can say no, I can resist. Somebody says, "Hey, this is watch The Sopranos, watch this, watch that," and I just try to resist, because
Okay.
I know the addiction of it. The fact is, you watch one episode, and then I have to see the second. Oh, I have to see the third. Just a waste of time.
I get it. I'm solving that by just being more selective because, as you mentioned, The Sopranos, I'll probably never get into that. I do recognize that there's discussions to be had over some series. Uh, people get caught up in the lore and totally detach it from what it means for real life, because I'd argue many artists recognize their role in the world, but that they're not the main character, and they can display it by making a series that shows such a thing. And
I just think that these are the little things you have to do to try to devote enough time to the introspection, okay, that really frees your mind. So I'm just saying you first have to do this introspection thing. And if you have a world that keeps talking to you, you can't do introspection because you keep reacting to what the world's doing. So in a
I
way,
disagree.
I think you have to become somewhat disconnected.
Well, I keep contrasting myself against everyone. That's how I ended up here. Like contrasting myself against you did me huge favors in terms of understanding. I mean, not huge favors in terms of feeling good, but there is obviously some kind of reward I keep receiving, or I keep receiving, right, when I contrast myself. And it doesn't even have to be malicious. I contrast myself to there's this emotional wall. I don't know how many people have that, but there's this blockade or blockage that keeps me from comparing two things when they're too close for comfort, or at least that's how it used to be, right? Question my relationship. Oh my god, I miss my ex-girlfriend, it's killing me. Contrasting myself within friendships, it's quite a potent force. It's destructive in a way, because you can't undo the truths that keep happening from contrasting yourself, or your opinions even, or your preferences. Those are all different things, and they keep getting conflated.
Yeah, well, the confirmation bias, or whatever you want to call it, the optimism bias, the I'm not as bad as I think I am bias, or whatever, you know what I'm saying. There is a point where you start to become defensive of your own attacks. You know what I mean?
And I'd like to get to the root of that.
defending yourself against, and well, I know what I think the root is just a self-preservation mechanism. I mean, it's just again, we're designed and built to be survivors, and there's a certain even though it's you that's winning over you, there's a certain perception that the you that's winning is not the right you somehow. That it's a foreign you, and maybe that's just because you grow up as the ego, and something attacking the ego becomes foreign, even
Yeah.
though it's your own intelligence doing it.
That's where I bring in the what's it called, argument of proximity, or the closer it is, the more true it is. There's this involuntary conflation of closeness and truth. That's where the family bias comes in, the state bias, the race bias, and all of that. It's just, if you're underexposed to something, you're way more prone to recognize it as not real. And I know I used recognize wrong in the sentence, but it feels that way. You recognize something as less real.
Yeah, and I think there's always a kernel of you that's always that 10-year-old kid or 13-year-old kid or 15. The part of you that maturated into the world is still the most genuine part of you, in a way. Your conditioning is built out of that you, and that you is always kind of, like I said, defensive. So it does create some barriers to focus.
And that's one thing I try to battle or counter when I'm here in the open, I guess, in front of, I don't know how many people watch this, 800,000, 1,200 people. And that's where I try to throw these random facts about me out there to, well, for multiple purposes. First off is entertainment. People like when people humiliate themselves or give amazingly cringy performances, and or underperformances. So whenever people can glean entertainment out of it, they conflate it with having value. And in a sense, that's true, because this laughter is some kind of recognition. Ha ha ha! There's something to learn here, but I didn't yet, or something like that. That's a defeat laughter.
Yeah, well, that's a hard one to, because there's conflicting examples of what kind of humiliation is going to do you good and what kind is going to do you bad. I mean, what you're exactly guilty of or what crime you commit has a huge, plays on that.
Yeah, it has a pattern, and
Yeah,
the
well, it
pattern
depends, I think, on the audience and a lot of things. Who's looking. I mean, you could like Lance Armstrong. He was double hero because he was this great example of somebody who survived cancer and came back and did all this crap. And yeah, it was all sort of a lie though, and it was all cheating, and it was, and so that's it's almost like I guess people could take it either way. Some people say still the greatest, and other people would say, that's the worst kind of liar,
Yeah.
and so the villainy for some people will be so extreme that they can't see any value in the person, and the opposite is the person will excuse almost anything because
Exactly.
the hero was such a hero, they just can't knock it down.
To get back to the laughter example, I would create a quick spectrum between defeat laughter, the one I described before, and applause laughter. And the latter would be one that confirmation bias is here, and the opposite of it is here. So the factor X, the I don't know part, along with the there's something to learn part, is here, and here's the applause laughter, the ha ha ha, he said something that puts me in favor in some situation. I don't know which. But
I just don't know if it really matters. I mean, I think there's something there's something more fundamental that makes people likable or hateable. And I just don't know if it gets to all this kind of crap that makes any difference, because you do see examples where it just doesn't matter to people how many times certain people cross the line. It just doesn't matter. And for other people, one violation and you're slaughtered. So it's just gang warfare in a way, and it's so I don't know if I think what makes people appealing is something fundamental, like they have the same defects as the people watching, or they have something in common with them that they can see this person as some sort of version of themselves, as a winning version of themselves. Maybe that's what it means to them, is that they can see this other person as a winning version of themselves.
But they're also recognizing defects within that other, right? So there's either a right mixture or the right.
I think the defects are just another way of saying, look, I'm a fat alcoholic slob like you. You see, so the defects are just a way of validating the connectedness and saying, look, Jedis don't have to be perfect. They can be a mess and lazy and stupid, and they're still Jedis. Yeah, that kind of thing. I think that's sort of what I think. It's just a kind of voyeurism.
Yeah, I mean, we do like reflections of ourselves, but I don't think that's everything there's to it. I think in a more refined sense, there's this. If you check all boxes, I agree with him. I recognize this pattern. I see myself kind of attacked.
Let's put it into a category and just say there's this idea of charisma, and it's a difficult thing to describe as it having actual standards, because what it is a reaction that people sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and a connectedness. So it's so subjective that I don't even know.
It's an effect, not a cause.
I'm not saying it's not worth analyzing. I'm just saying what ties people to, what makes people popular or lovable by a great number of people in a very passionate way is so subjective that I don't know if you could ever formalize it.
Well, I think this list of arguments I composed does a pretty good job of composing the not composing but recognizing the factors. Those are pretty close to human psychology, I guess, because they're all in a way valid arguments, and in another way one can defeat the other. There's a scissor paper rock principle.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying from what I see in the world, in my experience of what makes somebody a celebrity. Okay, somebody who gets $10 million in film versus somebody who gets $2 million a film is usually not something, in my opinion, you could document. It is so circumstantial and so based on just this pure psychology, pure mush of.
Not only that, let's say you figured out the psychology, right? You send someone, some actor or some director like that into the race, and their outcome is still not secure because there's bottlenecks like, ooh, this guy decides who gets to play in the movie, right? That's a real bottleneck.
No one's going to make another Godfather, so you didn't get the perfect role, or you didn't get this, it'll never be the same pattern. You know what I mean? It'll be a similar pattern, but it won't be the same pattern. And without the same pattern, it's still not going to work because the formula is completely dependent on you having that
the framework. Yeah. And then the recipient.
That one 10, versus an 8, and the 8 just isn't enough to make it happen. So yeah, it'd be really hard to duplicate in a new version that old success because it is so dependent on
fundamentally different
timing, perfect timing and things, very narrow timing, let's just say.
But then again, there's the counter side to that. The other side of the medal on that is that you use the movie itself as a reference, as a 10. So that's a hugely contributing factor. You can only lose if you go, the new movie.
I'm not arguing your argument. I'm just saying that, I could say like Martin Luther King, you could try to formalize what it was that made that man at that moment, as big as he was. And you could try it now and it wouldn't work, and it wouldn't work for 1,000 reasons,
Exactly.
I mean, so, there's just the formula doesn't do you any good because 500 of the reasons are that it's not 1960. So it can't work because it's not 1960.
Yeah, and the right reporter has to be in power and the most influential and the most appraised, and then
I'm just saying that it's so dependent on so many things that just exist. There's not fins on cars anymore. It's some little stupid things like that probably matter.
Yeah.
And it's like that's going to be, you can't duplicate, you can't find a modern version of that same gimmick. And so the gimmick just can't work.
Yeah. But that's an attempt of tapping into the same melody, that's where I would apply how journalism is made, right? You don't discover the news, you make the news. So again, building from the ground up the melody to shoot out the perfect meme or to plant it or to detonate it, whatever, is probably producible in that sense.
Yeah, I think the bomb can have lots of shapes. So I don't disagree that I can make a bigger bomb, that has all these comic features and it has all kinds of other, what I'm saying, it has all kinds of extra mechanical devices connected to it to make it more bombable. Like it'll try to have weapons against if it rains. You know what I mean? So I can make a bomb that's waterproof and one that's not waterproof, right?
Yeah.
So my bomb will work as long as it doesn't rain. My bomb will work as long as it doesn't snow. My bomb will do this, you know. So I'm saying it's, yes, it'd be better to be able to make the perfect bomb is obviously going to have defenses against all failures. Okay. It's all going to have all kinds of like 4 or 5 on off switches. So it doesn't, you know, fail for some dopey reason. I have all these redundancies. So I'm just saying, yes, the perfect bomb would probably be full of all that, have all this knowledge of all psychological possible devices and all kinds of weapons against those psychological devices and blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying that I'm just trying to make the bomb. And, you know, I just don't even have the energy to try to figure out how to do all of the weapon.
Of course, no one has. No one person
making
has.
It making waterproof is just, you know, it's more important that I actually make the bomb explodable than I make it waterproof. I guess that's what I'm sort of saying.
Okay.
I first have to have a bomb that can explode before I can worry about, you know,
it reaching everywhere.
Yeah, making it capable of surviving to the exploding moment. You know, the first step is to make sure it explodes.
Yeah, in my image, as soon as you mentioned the bomb as a method, I imagined the explosion having a deliberate amoeba-like shape, right, growing at the right time, the flames growing at the right time, the right amount, and branching out and becoming like this fire tree or fire roots.
Yeah, well, you're taking the metaphor to it. You know, I'm talking about the bomb as being something that will be successful, and getting it to the place where it needs to explode. And so you're just saying that the part of the exploding process is moving to the place it needs to explode. So you're, you know, I'm just saying it's the same. We're making the same point. You're just making it from a different point of view. We're just saying that the bomb has features that'll
later in the bomb cycle
that will make it effective. Yes, I would like to have all those features, but I first got to guarantee the bomb can blow up.
Well, of course, they play into each other, those both facts, because if you just have this huge detonation that leaves the Earth like
I just think it's a practical matter that you're a terrorist and you're going to plant a bomb. I'm just saying, yes, you have to worry about your bomb being found, and you have to worry about how many people can kill, and if you put it in a place that's going to be effective and all that shit. I'm just saying, but the first step is to make sure the bomb blows up, right? I mean, job one is to make sure the bomb will go off.
Okay.
So that's all I'm arguing, is that the first, you have to take these steps as steps, and the first fundamental step is you have to have a weapon that works. Okay, you have to have a sword, and then you can learn how to use a sword. Is that a good metaphor? I mean, first you have to make the sword, and then it becomes useful to know how to, you know.
I'm just arguing how many of the evil magic you want to use to coat the sword to not become actually evil, but, you know, to have just enough knowledge of the shiny black obsidian coating that covers the sword.
Well, I guess I'm not even worried about this evil thing. I'm just saying, because I'm saying that even if the war took 100 years, it would be worth fighting. So in my sense, from my perspective, you know, there's no bad way for the bomb to go off. There's only positive ways, and there's more positive and less positive, but that's
over time.
There's no threat. There's no threat that it's going to blow my own ass off or something, you know, that kind of thing.
The counter argument that the general at large is probably would react with is the current generation, in a sense, is more important than the ones that don't come after.
Well, I guess you could argue that the real argument to be made is you know, if you're really going to worry about getting to people's psychology, the point is you want to make these word bombs for kids. You know, you really want to start with, don't let kids get badly programmed. Don't let them get stupid, and then you own them. So if I can prevent them from catching idiocracy, then that's the real gold mine, so to speak, is to prevent people from becoming idiots.
I guess
So I
I'm
should make
saying
a
what you.
kids program. I should just make kids programming, right? Kids
Yeah,
show.
of course, because look, adults in more civilized countries, um, as we are living in, are becoming more kid-like, right? Because they can afford to. They don't have to change as much or as drastically. And
They still have to change rather drastically from their fabulistic use of these silly religious and hero metaphors to describe their life. So obviously life has been described in a bunch of Lord of the Rings bullshit, and all of that is crap. So I'm just saying that that's obviously that um, uh, meme, or whatever you want to call it, that life affirming meme is still going to exist whether they're watching cartoons or not. So in my opinion, the audience to get to again is before they get addicted to and dependent on fables as a way of understanding what life is. It's not the Three Bears.
no, I mean something drastic in the sense of the depending on how you count generations, the generation before ours had something real to experience, a war, right? I mean, it doesn't get more real than that. Or
I know, but they didn't have any real philosophical awakening through that process. They the survivors came back and talked about how glorious it was to be in a war. Okay.
true, true.
Okay. And they just end up having more kids, and it's like, Iraq gets blown up and Afghanistan gets blown up, and what do people do? They just make more babies to get blown up.
Yeah. What an insidious mechanism.
So I'm just saying that I wish people learned from those experiences, and I guess that's what I'm saying is once they have this stupid optimism bias built into their brain and this survival mechanism and this me first bullshit, they never get, they're harder to migrate. And I'm just saying, if you can get them at kids to be thoughtful, okay, then they're less corruptible, okay, by obvious self-interested babble beliefs. It's a lot harder for them to acquire religion, once they understand evolution.
True. What I was getting to is, sorry to jump back into the metaphor, but the bomb has gone off, right? It has successfully convinced a lot of people. There's this element in not only humanity, but I think it goes deeper. It's actually within the strive or tendency for individuality itself, this need to contrast, right? It's sometimes it gets used as an argument, the world would be boring if everyone was the same. And that's just another dismissal. That's just no. But it's still there. It gets used.
The vacuous cliches are just another one of the things that's part of the bomb has to explode, is the vacuous cliches. So that's one of the jobs of the bomb. As the first job as you're a sword fighter is to cut the straps that hold the other guy's sword on, that kind of thing. That's the first weapon you have to kill, are the cliches of bullshit. That's cliches are like religion. They're just little fairy stories, and a very few words.
But it's really hard to suppress the apparent merit that comes up when there's a niche to be filled, right? We're niche animals. I mean, even within our societies, it happens to just get filled and recreated and changed. So this, I'm conflating the individuality part with the niche seeking behavior.
Yeah, well, I'm saying once you figure out 2 + 2 = 4, you can't go back to 2 + 2 = 3. So I guess my argument is is that once you, I mean, this intelligence things of human beings is something that's progressive. You know, it has a
Yes, it's
direction.
growing.
Okay. And so once you get to a certain level, you're above the quicksand. You know what I'm saying? You're out of the maze, you're above
Yeah.
it. And so to me, there's a game change, so to speak, at certain levels. All right. When you're only halfway up the wall of the maze, you can't really see anything. You know, it doesn't help at all. But when you
Mhm.
really reach the top of the maze, then things really open up. And then when you're 10 feet above the maze, then it really becomes obvious.
Yeah, exactly. But people have, uh, I think you actually can unlearn 2 + 2 is 4 because it keeps happening.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is there's a certain level of um, real knowledge. You know what I'm saying? When you really know 2 + 2 = 4, you just can't do it. You can't make your
But
brain
it
say
uses,
three. You just can't do it. There's no way to make three work. It just never can work. There's no, you could think about it. I could think about it for 10 years. There's no way I'm going to make three work.
I can't, uh, I can't separate anything uh, that identifies a process that leads to enlightenment. uh, I can't separate the one that leads to indoctrination.
Oh
They
yeah,
seem,
I think there's a huge difference between evolution and religion. So I think there's a huge difference between science and religion. There's a
yes,
huge
yeah,
difference between fucking made up fables about talking bears and real stories about real people living in the real world. So I'm just saying, you know, there's just a huge difference, and that difference over time should be realized in the fact that yes, people recognize that we cannot diagram reality with cartoon characters. That is, you know, talking rabbits. It's just not right.
I think we can only diagram them with cartoon characters because cartoon characters, in essence, means this lack of information, lack of completeness, right? It's just a concept.
No, no, it's a lie. So I'm just saying that no, no, no. The cartoon characters are a replacement for. It's like the fairy godmother. They're an imaginary fake. They have a illegitimate, not real. They're not representing
Yes.
us. Okay, they're distorting and completely lying about what we are. So I'm just saying they're not a place. It's not like you choosing a Monopoly piece. I'm the shoe on the Monopoly board. You know, I'm not saying it's a replacement for you or a symbol of you. I'm saying it's a complete lie to say I'm a shoe.
You don't happen to watch Lucifer? I mean, online, a series?
No, of course not.
Okay. Um, just because the choice of the metaphor, it was surprisingly similar. Never mind.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just
so
saying. I'm just saying there is a real difference between accurate and inaccurate, and I'm saying there's a certain point in even our intelligence, even our maturation, where we get to start to recognize the difference between inaccurate and accurate. So I'm just saying whether it's a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old or whatever the age is, there should be an age that human race gets to where they're no longer gullible kids that'll believe in fairy stories.
oof, yeah. Um, no, no, don't believe in this Islam bullshit. Christianity is the way to go. You know what I mean?
Again, I'll argue that that's exactly the problem we're fighting is that they're
Yeah.
all the same. Okay. And they're what is wrong with them is the same thing that's wrong with them. They're preposterously unevidenced, inaccurate, silly descriptions of reality. They're absolutely silly. They're 2 + 2 = 17. They're not even close to the right answer.
Um, going at it from the other side again, what if cartoon characters were more obvious about what they want to represent?
Again, I'm not arguing against representing people as cartoon characters. I guess I'm saying that make the cartoon character a fairy godmother, and then you'll see what I'm saying. The point is that if you make the cartoon character into something that has special powers, all right, then it's a lie. If you're just making it into a talking rabbit that has the same kind of limitations we have, then the cartoon character is acceptable.
Okay. The same kind of limitations we have. Again, I mentioned that communication over distance, like we're doing right now, is essentially a superpower, or could have been considered one a few years ago.
Well, I would sort of disagree that even 1,000 years ago, the idea of putting a note in a bottle wasn't beyond somebody's imagination.
Okay, but the time frame it took to for
So
delivery.
time is sort of irrelevant if all I got to say is, yeah, they got a dick on my butt. You know,
Okay.
I mean, most of what people had to say to each other wasn't all that important, right? So let's just, you know, recognize.
Let alone redundant. Can you imagine how many tens of or how many thousands of years the same thing gets said over time by how many people?
Well, the same arguments have to be constantly remade over and over again, like abortion.
Because we're finite, we're forgetting.
Abortion is going to become an issue again. It's abortion, and same bullshit arguments over and over again.
Yeah. So if people insist on staying as slow as they are, there's gonna pop up a group that's gaining in speed while they're talking. And I think it's up to that group to have the right framework and build from the grassroots up, like the grassroots being a golden rule and so on.
Well, I've made this argument before. I think the tilt of human intelligence is in a direction. So I think if you have enough time, you get we'll get to being civilized.
Yeah,
the truth will be realized and accepted. It's just that the arc of that line is just way too slow, you know, for the circumstance. And so we're going to end up being in perpetual for a while. We could be an idiocracy for a very long time when all we're doing is our AK-47 kill each other over stupid Muhammad versus Jesus bullshit. We could get stuck in that for hundreds of years or thousands of years. I'm just saying the waste can be insane in terms of not getting there quicker. And so I'm just saying that I am one of the mechanisms that's supposed to be trying to tilt this fucking line so we get to the truth quicker. That's my hope, is to do something to push this, you know, get more degrees here and get this line moving quicker to that future.
I want to do the same thing.
Yes, I'm just saying that's the objective, and how to do that is like I said, then you get into an argument about whether you're arguing philosophy or whether you're first have to do psychology. And yes, I would argue that this is a difficult task, and it has lots of ways that can be successful. Obviously, there would be a perfect way, but I don't know. Neither one of us can prove what perfect is. So what's the point? You know, I don't know if that argument's worth having.
Well, we're looking for a good enough anyway.
Yeah, so, we're just trying to get the best we can out of our abilities. And so, yes, I'm all for that. And if people have a suggestion that I try to do something, okay, you know, suggest it's okay. I'm not opposed. You know, people are all constantly critiquing my performance and telling me I'm wasting time doing this, and I'm wasting time doing that. And that's okay. I mean, I accept your perceptions.
Well, I think
you seldom prove it with anything.
A form of mental illness.
You know, they seldom prove, you know, with an example of somebody doing it right, you know, how I'm doing it wrong. But anyway.
Well, they're just people with one opinion each.
Well, I know, but opinions should be, like I say, if you're going to assert something, it's better too. Then you should have some documentation proving that vitamin W is what I really need. You know, you should have some kind of paperwork that demonstrates that, yes, you just need some vitamin W.
Yeah, that distinguishes it from a claim, a naked claim.
Yes, I'm just saying that people are really good at just making observations about things that obviously just they don't like. You know, comb your hair. You know, that'll make all the difference. You know,
So
take some get younger pills.
yeah, that's, I don't know that's if that's relevant, but I wanted to ask you about if you're. I actually want to take your comfort into account and know about your effects of aging, if you're inclined to tell me.
What do you want me to tell you about it? Whether you like it or dislike it? Yeah, I don't like it at all. It's
You
really
said something about your bad back, or well, there's a lot of
well, that's
things.
only
Most of
the
it is
minor
vague.
part, right? Is this the fact that your body just, you know, your foot aches for no reason. You know, you wake up and your foot aches, and you're like, what the fuck? You know, so you have shit like that, all these little bullshits, you know. But yeah, just losing your, you know, I was the same person for so long, you know, and now you just become this cruddier version, and you're just like, oh shit. You know, it's like the car falling apart. You know, it's like, oh, it's all rusty and the fender's falling off, and it's just like, it's just no fun to be part of a, you know, to have a car that's falling apart.
I don't know if that even compares, but I've uh, collected a couple of habits over time since I was like 17 that uh, exactly went down my spine, right? And I had this developing and lingering pain. And most of the time, I wouldn't even notice. I would just be pissed off, right? There's this numbing mechanism, or this I'm getting used to it phase. And then there's the phase where it just becomes critical, and I feel like I have to do something. Like first, I started actually doing something that seems healthy for my back, and after a while of doing that, I developed more and more behavior to manipulate my moving apparatus. Um,
Yeah,
in a
there's
way
lots of advice.
that repairs me.
People,
And along the way, I discovered that doing some leaps in character, right? How do I put this? Opposition when opposition is needed, and actually doing something when I think something should be done. It ended up factoring in my back pain. You know what I mean?
I know, but
So
you're just, I mean, that's almost gets anecdotal, you know, in terms of you don't know what the placebo effect or what's a real effect. So, I mean, I'm not saying that people shouldn't share their personal experiences, but I'm just saying that these are all individual problems. Like I have a back problem in terms of, you know, compressed disc, but now I also have sciatica. So they're two different back problems.
yeah.
And so what's good for one isn't too good for the other. So
Mm.
it gets a little bit complicated because, you know, to treat one problem,
You might exacerbate the other.
you're just making the other worse. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great advice for somebody who doesn't have sciatica, but it's shitty advice for somebody who does, you know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, trying to treat each other as if each other's in the same condition is always dangerous, you know, because just because you have something generically similar wrong with you.
That's also one of the dangers of the proximity argument. You know, I am close to myself. I experience myself way more. I experience myself as normal. I assert normal as myself. I assert a situation that applies to me applying to you.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if it's normal association because I guess most people would think I'm the superior version. You know, so it's not even like they're going,
Now you're projecting.
I'm normal. No, I'm far superior, and everybody should be like, I'm so fucking far superior.
Yeah, but I think both happens. You know, the I'm superior is separate from the I'm the normal. I am the norm. I think that happens within people. You know, there's some obvious ways where that is true. I breathe oxygen. I need sunlight. I need nutrients. I need water. That's a healthy assumption.
Yeah,
But
well,
then
just really, you know, I guess I would argue that yes, I might have felt more of a need when I was a kid to feel normal. Then later, I figured out that normal was fat and stupid, and I really don't want to be normal anyway. So you just figure out that normal is kind of that's like being average, and you really don't want to be average. You don't want to get straight C's. You do want to get A's, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's an easier leap to make than normal is cruel and crude and disgusting.
Yeah, I just mean that's just another one of those subjective biases that comes out of the fact that the word normal should just mean some kind of simple thing, where obviously for me now, normal is like a pile of steaming shit. So when you say normal, I envision steaming shit. I don't envision any kind of positive thing. The word normal is kind of an anti. I mean, it's a derogatory term.
In some sense, well, it's actually a neutral term. It's a descriptor for a norm value that pops up.
That's what it would have been for me, before 20, and then after 20, it's different. I'm just saying that the word has completely changed its definition for me personally over time.
Yeah, I guess that you will reflect that in your rhetoric, of course. I don't do that yet on an emotional level, but my projections into the future kind of indicate that I'm probably becoming you in some sense. I don't know if that's derogatory, or am I just flattering myself? Probably some of both. Again, where was I starting? Oh yeah, the normal thing, right? In my native language, I'm actually a Slav, Balkan, whatever.
Well, I would have guessed something like that. I would have, Serbia or something, but yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, sure. There's this habit of asking somebody if he's normal, like in a derogatory way. Are you normal? This. Are you still intact? That's what they mean. Are you intact? And there's a heavy bias right on display. Normal and the thing you want to be normal are pretty much conflated.
Right. Well, that's sort of proving my point, in the sense that the word normal really shouldn't even. It should be an anti. We should all say the word means nothing. So let's just dispose of it, because obviously normal, we don't even have generic. You know what I mean? We all don't get raised in the same country. We don't speak the same language. We don't eat the same food. We don't do anything that could be classified as a norm. So why bother with this stupid word? Because there are so few norms. It's beyond the fact that you probably had a mother. What else do we have in common, right? I mean, the amount of stuff that would be normally human is so tiny, and so insignificant compared to all the stuff that abnormals us, that makes us different. So the stuff that makes us the same is so small, and the stuff that makes us different is so huge in terms of our conversation and our interactions with each other. Right?
Right.
I mean, it's like we're nothing like wolves or something. You know what I mean? We all don't just speak wolf. We all don't know the wolf code. We all don't, we're all being completely different animals.
Part of it is, of course, because we're focusing on differences, right? That's proven more functional, and that's why
I don't think we're looking for it. I think we just notice it. We notice irregularities in pattern, and so as soon as the music is one note off, some people notice, and there's two more notes off, somebody else notices. 3 notes off, more people notice. So the more notes that are off, the more you notice it ain't the right song.
The right song.
Well, I mean, the song as the song. So I'm just saying, if we're communicating and we know that I know that happy birthday sounds like happy birthday to you, happy birthday, and you're going, happy, birthday.
Example like that.
And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you doing? Fucking it all up.
Yeah, but in their heads, it sounds perfectly fine. I
Right.
know
Well,
an
I'm just saying
example.
that, yes, where I'm just saying that that's the problem, is that so much of our life experience is so distorted and bent and different that we can't even use words the same. You know, they don't have the same meaning. I say evolution, it means something to me, and somebody else, I say the word to them, and they have this, this silly cardboard cutout of the word. You know what I mean? It's not even close
Yeah,
to having
yeah,
any
they actually think
tail or
we were a fish that became a monkey that became
yeah,
human.
yeah, they just have like a tree with monkeys hanging off of it, and just there, that's evolution. So I'm just saying that that's part of what the biggest problems here is trying to find the connected pieces to do our Rosetta Stone, to make our translations work.
One of the things that pops up at me is the concept of the uncanny valley. Are you familiar with that?
I'm just assume that everything you are doubtful about. There's no reason to have a doubt. I am totally unfamiliar.
Unfamiliar. Okay. Um, it mostly gets referenced in robotics or animation. Both of those want to recreate humanity in inanimate objects, and they're concerned with the appearance. Like there's a scale. There's imagine the humanity scale goes like this, and here's the parts where you place the object. Here is a stone with googly eyes on it, right? There's the scale. Here are different objects, and here's the humanity scale. And here is a perfect robot that looks perfectly human, right? Here's a stone with googly eyes. Here's a zombie. I'm sorry. Here's a broom that has some arms glued to it.
I know, but look, let me just cut it a little bit short. I mean, wouldn't the point be though that for each person, the level of exactness or duplication would be much less? I mean, I could fuck the broomstick, where somebody else you'd have to put boobs on, balloons or something, and then somebody else would need vinyl skin, and somebody else needs pretty eyes, and somebody else needs this. So
Yeah, but it's not about the scale. There's another line that represents sympathy for the thing, right? There's the rock with googly eyes. There's the broom. It gets higher in acknowledgement or sympathy with the viewers on average, right? There's a zombie. Here's a kid with Down syndrome, and it falls down, right? The humanness and non-humanness mixture kind of takes a dip right before the
I know,
right
but
before the perfection.
that's just more psychology stuff. That's like saying that anime, uses big eyes on the characters because the big eyes is a trigger. So yeah, we as humans we have triggers that trigger our subjective, sensual, and whatever the word I'm looking for, the subjective taste and subjective reactions. So we're stimulated by these triggers. So I'm just saying, you're just saying how, yes, there's a certain science to describing those triggers.
Sure. But there's one more thing I want to add. The In those circles where I am looking around, this uncanny valley thing has been discussed to death in some sense. However, I think it doesn't get applied enough, because I think it's this dip in quality perception as the quality actually rises is more prevalent in some other areas. For example, there's imagine an image board and you're looking at pictures of women, and most of them look average or very attractive, right? And there's this one attractive woman, attractive to you even, and she has a really big nose, and that's kind of so off that it's even putting you off more than the below average looking. people. Know what I'm saying? This uncanny valley thing, I think that plays directly into that.
I'm still just going to argue that it's just having subjective conversations about the perfect dessert, which was a waste of time, because obviously for some people it's going to be fruit, or some people it's going to be chocolate, some people it's going to be blah blah blah, and that's going to be their taste. And so why would I think there's anything normal or normalizable in terms of trying to assume an identity that would mean anything except to specific audiences? So it depends on my who I put in the room to look at it. I'm going to get completely different results.
But the thing I'm referring to is even if you get closer to something, it gets some kind of weird dip in quality perception, even if the quality rises.
I know, but you could do that with, let's say, the look of a car, and you have a well-waxed and polished Volkswagen and a dirty, ugly Maserati. There might be an impulse to jump in the Volkswagen or say, I want that. From 50 feet away, you might say, I want that car, and it's just because you don't know that one of them's worth $300,000 and the other one's worth 30. So I'm just saying, I get what you're saying, sort of, but I'm saying, what, you're going to argue about the fact that there's nuance about these triggers? Yeah, there's nuance about the triggers. Which ones are going to be important to what individual is going to be completely different. And, depending on how much total information they have, you didn't even bring up these women. The women could all say one word, and then you would have their voice as one of the the parts that make them more attractive or less attractive, right? And a woman could have just a fantastic hello, it's just, oh fuck, that just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear it.
Okay, so, but it's still not going to fix some stuff just ain't gonna matter. Okay, I mean, some defects, like boogers hanging out of her nose or something, just ain't gonna be fixable.
Oh, come on, that's just hot.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm all talked out.
And it's probably around that time. So, yes, a couple hours is always about enough for me. And we've probably done something close to something like that. So, all right. So, summing up, like I said, I think these conversations have value, just in the sense we're both talking about some kind of this idea that we have to translate our personal experience, which is this complex thing built over decades of living. Okay. Yeah. And you have to try to translate that first into some sort of, I have to be able to narrate it, which is hard as hell to do. How do I write the narrative that's in short enough, a little package that said, this is what I am, this is what I've become. And, this is why it has integrity as a place to be. And then you're going to have to try to translate those experiences and the stuff that's important, like this idea of me saying the truth matters or fairness first. Somehow those words mean so much to me and they mean nothing to somebody else. And that's, part of this whole conversation. But yes, it's finding this way of communicating, the fact that you've sit and watched a long trial and you've listened to a lot of evidence and you've drawn really solid conclusions, and you're sitting there saying, I should be able to convey to you why, yes, you should investigate at minimum a little of this introspection thing and see if you can find in yourself this truth that 2 + 2 = 4. Because I think if you really think about it, you can do it. You can see it. Something like that.
Sure. I, for one, wouldn't be opposed to the idea of every atom on Earth having a name, an addressable name in a very short character. You know what I mean?
Well, I suppose you're getting back to the accountability thing, like everything having a role and everything just a fact that it has a history and a place and a function.
Yeah.
And it will do or not do, as Yoda said. Okay, there is no hope, or wish. There's just do and do not do.
I think the more is, yeah, you said it, accountability, but let's rephrase that another way. The more is you can capture, the more should you probably can create.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're still just doing a model thing in the end. In my opinion, you're just showing a model of function and saying this function is what we're trying to avoid, which is blood and guts and horror and screaming. And we're trying to make this over here, which doesn't have any of that screaming and horror and terror stuff. And that's just sort of an obvious argument. If this is a more functional model than this model, and if we're going to build one, let's build this one, not build that one,
Yeah, and there's this machine I'm probably talking about is capable of answering really many questions. Or attacks even to the model, or to the proposed finite, reduced couple of possibilities, right? That's just, it cuts down on the bullshit, it cuts down on the pain, it cuts down on the outcomes, essentially, and asks the participants, which of course comprise the machine, hey, do you want this? Or even it starts, from the wish up, what do you want?
Yeah, well, this is, I guess, part of the thing I left out is that I'm basically describing, like, here's a scene of you getting the gold medal. Here's a scene of you getting the gold medal. One of them you cheated, okay, and one of them you don't cheat. And people they'll go for the one where I should have said 2 gold medals. If they get 2 gold medals by cheating, they'll go for that one instead of the other one. So they first have to learn that cheating's not right. You know what I mean? That it's not about them. It's not about what happens to me. It's about whether or not the model works. Okay. Not whether the model makes you have a gold medal. And so that's what that's what makes it complex, is that you do have to deal with the fact that people aren't going to judge the model. They're going to judge how the model affects them, and that's the real problem. That's a big problem. Let's just say that's a big problem.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I guess.
So till the next time and such. And if somebody else wants to engage in this kind of whatever, blah, 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 conversation stuff, I'm not opposed to other participants, even in a room with anus and, with extra anus. And such. So just email and say, yes, I would like to add your whatever monetary contribution as a metaphor for intellectual capital. Anyway.
Yeah, I think this in the garbage guy is actually really itching under his or her fingernails to participate. I'm heavily encouraging you.
Yes, I will not heavily encourage anything the chatters say, do, want, wish. None of it. None of it is worth encouraging.
One brush.
But yes, well, no, I mean, it's just always turns out that way. You just can't fail. You just couldn't. You couldn't miss a stinky target. You're just, every single one of them is that one deserved a bullet too. Yep. You just can't miss.
Yeah. I keep proving that. I was part of the chat once.
Yes,
well, dream big.
I'm just saying, so far you're not exactly indispensable. So I'm just saying, so far. I mean, maybe you will prove yourself indispensable. So far, if I would have shot you 3 weeks ago, I don't have any evidence that I'm doomed because I did that. But anyway, we'll see. There's hope. Maybe. Realm of possible. Anyway, Yeah, so that's it. Closing remarks, blah, 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 the end. And then fuck you. Yeah, that's good enough.